And they're open to interpretation, that's the difference.
But I'm not upset at the HOA. I'm upset at the residents who tried to make this personal. They sent my wife a threatening text, which we reported to the police. We've been getting all sorts of doggy presents in our yard now, and now we've been trying to. They keep reporting us against the HOA. They're trying to make it personal, trying to get us in trouble with everything. Because all she's trying to do is warn people that there is a city ordinance that says you can't have off-leash dogs.
Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids.
How old are they?
9 and 10.
And they
were walking a dog, and
another.
They were walking our neighbor's dog, and another dog attacked it. And that's what started this whole thing.
They can throw a carton of eggs, pretty good then, huh?
I can talk to Shannon too about it.
Well, Shannon's been really nice about it. Like I said, I have no issues with Shannon. I have no issues with the HOA. I have issues with the wording of the document, but that's not her.
Evening dinner.
No.
You know, I want a clarification. I mean, because it says unsightly. So if I put a military cargo net over it,
Just thought I'd ask. My dinner.
does that block it from you? Is that okay?
Well, Copenhagen.
You're right.
Copenhagen
you could put like a trellis or something on the underside of the deck to conceal it. And
real life problems of Rock Creek.
Oh, it's everywhere. I mean, HOAs are relentless.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of all the doggy presents I'm getting. And I didn't appreciate the threatening text that we got either.
They throw it in your. Are they throwing it in your yard?
Yes.
They throw the poop in your yard.
Yeah, but somehow the poop ends in our yard and we don't have a dog. And we're fenced off.
Yeah.
So put up a trail camera.
And it's not like a coyote or something maybe coming in. I mean, you
There's
can
no
tell.
way a coyote can come in.
Yeah.
Is it the green sack? It's even worse if it's in the green sack. Somebody's slinging it over the fence.
That stinks.
It's bad that it gets personal. They're trying to make it personal. That's the thing that upsets me.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Patrick, can you get the trails list?
By the way, on a second note, do y'all want to see something very interesting? What happened like 2 weeks ago? Happened right in front of my house.
That car accident?
Yes. I mean, that lady was going almost 50 miles an hour.
I was like, how the hell did that happen?
Going,
From your house?
right in front of my house. Look at this.
What'd she get?
Yeah,
Another
it's
car,
a
a large car.
It's narrow.
This car was
There's
parked.
so many
This
cars
car was parked right in front of my driveway across the street.
I thought the car was pulling out of the driveway, like backing out of the driveway.
No, it was parked. Nobody was in it.
So what, she was like probably texting or
Just
something?
destroyed it.
But the thing is so we live in Yarrow, right?
Yeah.
And there's not much room from the top of Yarrow when she was coming down.
There's 2 people street park on both sides. So it's
But
crowded.
people think it's a personal raceway. So by the way, she not only did all that damage, but pushed the car about 20 feet ahead with it in park. So you can see how far.
When I saw where the car was, I thought it must have been backing out.
Was that 3 cars
and
in
it got
there?
hit.
Let me see it.
So the other car was parked there, didn't get hit. So this car was parked over here in front of this mailbox.
She working
this
on the
car was
sauce a
driving
little
down,
bit before
pushed
that?
it,
Is she drunk?
hit it from here, pushed it. No, she had kids in it. She was just everybody speeds down this road, and she was speeding, and she was looking at something and swerved over and hit it.
50 miles an hour, they think?
About 50. I mean,
Something over there, the whole story. I was like,
Dude. I mean, that is like...
it smashed her whole back end. Broke her whole. I mean, it did some serious damage. This is in front of my house.
Police come?
A week and a half ago.
Good day.
50 mile an hour accident on a residential 25 mile an hour zone.
I sold cattle.
So this car was
Oh, yeah?
this mailbox was parked. This SUV came down, pushed it forward and smashed it.
Kuffner's buying tonight. That's cool. Is there like an auction up there or something? you
just
guys do?
going too fast.
Everybody goes so fast. That's the problem.
$265 per 100 pounds. Times 3.
I am over here.
55.
You can sit over here. We'll have a buffer between Peter and I.
So that's just for one. $944. $940.75 for one.
Yeah.
And
I tried to have a discussion with
that for
a
one
couple
cow?
folks about how fast people drive on Rock Creek Circle.
That's good work right there.
They're like, that's
So
your
I
cow
wrote
price
a letter
fluctuate a lot?
to them about installing a
Does it? It's
residential
dropping.
crosswalk. And they're actually going to
Drop
install
it.
3.
So like when you go to
good.
Walmart,
Well, I'm
they
glad
redo
you
the
did
road.
that
you buy
because
And they were, I guess they were already
Adventure
considering when they
Select,
got my letter. But
beef,
they're going to put like a
steaks,
median
hamburgers,
down
like
by the
$9
Starbucks,
pound.
Yep.
I guess. And then they're going to put
Hamburgers like
crosswalk at
$7,
East Yarrow,
$8
West
pound,
Yarrow,
Yeah.
and
So
Torrey's.
that's what I'm making. I'm
Yeah,
making
because when they
And so
came,
that should
Well,
by
That's gonna help.
effect
What was
calm
your $265 per
speed.
hundred
when they
pounds?
came.
Well, that'll calm the
Yeah.
Rock Creek speeds,
Okay.
not the Yarrow
It's
speeds.
not gonna
Not the
calm
Yarrow
your
and Castle
Yeah,
Peak.
and then
Yeah.
do those just go right to the?
Because they.
I would
came-
just like to see them put one of those trailers up so people understand
just
that
all
they're speeding.
cattle
I don't think people,
or
I don't think people are trying to be mean about it. I don't think they
Yeah.
realize that they're going that fast. They just don't pay
Heifers will bring
attention,
more
Yeah.
money here
and it's just
Everybody has
natural.
one.
Yeah.
And I'll sell some off in July, I'll sell some off in August.
Yeah, when they came
Patrick,
and
you
presented
get
at the
trail
summit,
list?
Yeah,
we were
it's
just like,
Okay.
crazy because they're so fast coming around there. So.
Okay, let's call to order this meeting of PROSTAC, May 18th, 2016. Lindsay Boyle is absent. Yeah, Ron, can you turn the lights on?
I saw Daryl outside.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah,
maybe her stuff right here.
Daryl and Chris should be inside in a minute. All right, so no one's here for public comment. So we'll start right off with item 3, the 2016 playground amenities that we talked about last. Well, yeah, that's not worded right. Well, this is the additional. This is $35,000 for next year, recommending an item, and so we had come up with a few items that we wanted Patrick to take a look at for pricing. So he's done that. Do you want to just go through those?
So, kind of quick recap, the items that we talked about were a playhouse feature, maintenance slide, another boogie board type swing, and then basketball hoop. So we spent a little bit of time, chatted with the 2 vendors who we work with pretty frequently. And I started with the treehouse knowing that would be kind of the most complex. So the one thing that I'll probably open with is that due to ADA and safety concerns, like a playground company wouldn't provide you with the treehouse. So if you're wanting a natural treehouse from the playground manufacturing kind of safety world, there were big red flags. So they don't get in that business. We could easily talk to a contractor about building an actual treehouse, but the route that this ended up going was because of these concerns, the play manufacturers are making manufactured treehouses. So that's what I followed up on. I didn't contact a general contractor to build an actual treehouse in a tree, but we could definitely go down that route if the group's interested in getting some information on that. So just for kind of your basic treehouse structure, $55,000 for the structure, not including the install engineering, et cetera. That's just for the product. As I mentioned, the vendors that we talked to, there were some safety concerns and ADA concerns and fall height restriction concerns with natural tree houses. So it would just, if we want to pursue it, it would move outside of where we just would work with a playground manufacturer. We would go a different route, more like building, like a general contractor. We learned that kind of this piece of equipment probably wouldn't retrofit well with existing older playground pieces. Maybe better as a standalone, or if the group were ever looking at, hey, they want to completely gut. I mean, we talked about North Pool. All right, let's say we want to get rid of North Pool. This could be an acceptable item to put into its place. I also looked at a couple other. Pull up. If not, I apologize. I can send it to you. The play manufacturers, recognizing this outdoor play trend, have created just a handful of outdoor themed products. I don't know if that's of interest to the group, but that's kind of where the discussion led in talking with the playground folks. My initial thought is that it was probably not what the group was maybe wanting to see, but at least it gives us a starting point. a little bit more natural looking play features. Any follow-up on that one or questions on that one?
I think if you just go through them and then we can talk about all of them.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Next item's the embankment slide. This I think is probably a fairly doable amenity. Found slides that ranged anywhere from 3,500 up to 20,000, depending on the length and the complexity. The one requirement is generally you want a 30-degree slope. 9 foot in length is kind of the standard. Anything over that, you're going to get custom, which will drive the price up. The interesting thing that we learned in talking with just some landscape architects and playground manufacturers on this is that the site improvement to actually get yourself to the top of the hill will probably be more expensive than the actual slide itself. The slide, from what we understood, is probably the easy part. Making sure that repeated traffic going up a hill or down a hill doesn't cause erosion problems. And I did my best to kind of pull some pictures of different solutions for getting up and down a hillside. And I do think that these are probably reasonable. I mean, I think something like this could probably be done fairly reasonable within the $35,000 range, depending on the length of the slide. And then I tried to clip the picture that Daryl had, but I'll just link to it. This
That
is
one's
a great
45
one.
feet long,
Yeah,
by the way.
awesome. Yeah, this was really, really cool. And I was trying to say, this almost looks like it's either colored concrete or maybe a little bit of poured in place. But again, a cool amenity. I think it's an amenity that if the location's out there, we can maybe get a landscape architect to come and do an analysis. Problem with that is then you incur costs to have them come out and do the actual analysis and come up with a plan. But again, really cool amenity. I know we've tried it at a couple different locations. I think it's a doable amenity, and we could probably come up with a couple of cool locations. I know Peter had a location in mind. Boogie board, freestyler swing. Kind of good news on this one. One, we've got one going in at the new school, the new park next to the school. And because of that, we've spent a significant amount of time getting this into that park. Estimated total project cost would probably be about $22,000, and that does include a standalone play pit with the concrete edger, ADA access ramp, drainage, and wood fiber. Again, due to its size, it doesn't probably retrofit all that well into an existing playground. But again, if we were looking to do kind of a standalone piece as a addition somewhere, put it in its own play pit, or if we were looking to remove old equipment and install new. Again, I think these two pieces completely installed would probably be in this $22,000 to $25,000 range. So again, a really attainable item. And then just kind of the simplistic basketball hoop. Again, we get pricing for this fairly frequently. It's about $3,000 per hoop, and depending on where we want to put it, if it's an existing slab of concrete, which I think we've talked about, I mean, you're maybe talking, an additional, maybe double that price if depending on how far down we need to excavate underneath it. So that's just a little bit of the follow-up.
If we had to do say a half court size or maybe a little less of a concrete pad, what would that cost?
You know what? I'll follow up. I just did the hoop. Probably 8. Well, full half court, or a little bit smaller, maybe like a quarter court.
Maybe a little bit smaller.
Probably 15,000 for the concrete.
But we could probably still do the whole thing for 20.
I think so. Yeah. I think a lot of it depends on location. Now that we've talked about these for a couple of years, the thing that I'm starting to realize is that it's not so much the amenity itself, it's all the other items that go around with it. you guys saw in that update about the Purple Park Pavilion. I mean, just the engineering piece of it alone is, $25,000. So something like that, if there's a concrete area, but then we'd want to make sure that it's accessible to get to it. And then if we had to move irrigation or anything like that. So, but again, I think if we can hone in on locations, it's really doable.
Okay. Any comments?
I have a question, not pertaining to either of these that he presented, but just in general. And I wasn't here last month, so maybe you guys already talked about this, but with the damage that happened at Community Park, the fire damage, is there, and I guess this can be covered with insurance, is there any way to, combine this with that and maybe do something bigger, do something better, or was it just replacement? I don't know exactly what the insurance is going to cover and how we're going to fix it, but can we combine it?
Yeah, so insurance will recover it was a little bit over about $6,000 worth of damage. They'll recover just the replacement parts and then the install time that our staff will go through. But yeah, I think if we want to make a change at Community Park, that's definitely a location that some of these items could work if we're looking to remove older items.
I just didn't know if there was any kind of efficiencies that we could maybe get something more than we would normally get, because we're already having to do work there on this thing anyways. That's kind of what I was looking at.
We just, anytime we get really aggressive vandalism like that, we pretty much, we ordered the next day, filed the insurance claim the next day, and it's already kind of en route. But yeah, I think, if that area is a chronic problem area. That's the third time that specific vandalism's happened to that specific piece. People tend to burn playground equipment quite a bit, and maybe that's something that we look at is changing up the equipment. We're also looking at putting lights down there. We already have cameras down there, but you can't catch much.
And as far as the location, just as a reminder, we did put a shade structure in at, actually, we didn't in the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
There's a shade
we?
structure down
There's
there.
one at Community Park.
There is, all right, so
It's right near.
we ended up doing 3, that's right. Okay, so yeah, when we just did do the improvement this year, or I guess technically it was last year, for Community Park. So the question would be, do we want to do something at Community Park again, or do we want to be a little bit more diverse and pick a different location? Any other thoughts? My 2 comments, I guess, would be the basketball hoop, the location that we had thought might work without having to do any type of concrete pad or anything was at Fire Station Park. The kind of far west end has a circular concrete pad that just has like a picnic bench sitting on it right now. And I don't know how much that gets used, but the picnic bench can be moved. So if you just move the picnic bench to a different spot in the park, you could potentially just put a hoop, and just a hoop, not have to worry about concrete pad next to the existing concrete pad, and it would be a cheap way of adding a basketball hoop.
The only issue I would have with Fire Station Park is that with the school parcel park going right there with the basketball court, and then right across
You're
Colton,
right.
you have the other park with the basketball. All the basketball hoops are concentrated in one area.
No, I'm just saying that's where the one location that we thought of for just being able to do a hoop and not have to incur the cost of a concrete pad. But you're right. It would be a concentration of basketball hoops in that case. And then the embankment slide, the most obvious location for that would be Pirate Park. It has the hillside. I'm pretty sure that's at least a 30-degree slope. I don't know what the length is. It might not be 45 feet, but it might be, say, 30 feet. It's definitely more than the little 9-foot ones that
It's at
Patrick
least
was
30
showing.
probably.
So that would be the obvious location for an embankment slide.
And is there enough runoff in front of that to, because my kids like to sled down that area, and I know I'm always worried when they're sliding down that that they run right into the playground equipment right there, so.
I think with the slide, you're not going to be having the run out that you need for a sled. So I'm pretty sure anywhere along there would be safe enough for a slide. But I mean, obviously, Patrick say that you probably need to get an engineer to come out and do some preliminary work on the, landscape design for that. So I mean, that's certainly something that they would
And
look at.
then in the Pirate Park area, where does Superior property end in that? Is it the hill it ends or at the top of the hill? Because isn't some of that,
It's a little bit off the top of the hill. So
Okay.
the town does own a piece of that property up there before it becomes level 3.
okay.
So yeah, there is some room for the town to play with. The other one that we could probably do for the cost was the boogie board swing. But, I mean, we are doing the one at El Dorado, so do we want to do another one right away, or do we want to kind of keep that in our back pocket for maybe another year or two down the road? I'm not sure where we would do that. If it has to be either in place of something or in a park that has enough area that it could be added, we'd have to look at that.
So I personally am in favor of doing something at Pirate Park for a little bit older kids. The stuff that's there now is really designed for a little bit younger kids. You don't have anything for the older kids in that side of the town and that side of the area. You can walk all the way over to School Parcel and get some stuff once that's finished. But for the park that's over there, it's really designed just for the younger kids. So I'd be in favor of the basketball hoop there or an embankment slide there, something for the older kids. Because right now all the older kids do, when we go over there, they just sit on they just sit there and talk on the equipment. They don't use it, they just sit there and use it as a gathering place, but they don't use it.
And I think you're going to need, I think it's significantly steeper than 30 degrees.
Yeah.
And so it might require some elevation work, because I think it'd be really fat.
Well,
And
if you
it's
did a
long,
slide
it's simple.
that had some bend curves in it,
That would be amazing.
then I would think that would solve the grade issue.
Yeah, and the hillside really needs erosion help, so I think you could do it in tandem.
Yeah. And my other thought was, I mean, we're yet to see what's actually going to happen with Coyote Ridge improvements, but we had talked about possibly having a trail connect from the top of the hill there into the Coyote Ridge. So if we did end up having to build, say, like a staircase or something, that could serve the dual purpose of accessing the slide as well as getting
Excellent
people
point.
up to the trail that would go over the Coyote Ridge. So, I mean, we might actually be able to share some costs there too, I would think. Is if, the town's going to be giving some money for Coyote Ridge improvements, maybe we could, if this was going to cost more than $35,000, then that might allow us to get a little bit extra money. Because
If you could make that trail bicycle, the one that you could ride up, that'd be really neat. Do both.
Yeah, you
So
probably
have
have
a
to,
staircase and a trail,
like a little
riding
switchback or
Mhm,
something. It'd probably just
yeah.
be like a 1 or 2 turn switchback.
Yeah.
I would think. Because I mean, I'm sure people do on their bike right now, but it's pretty steep.
Yeah, it's really steep. It's a challenge to ride up.
Is it big enough to have a slide, a staircase, and a bike trail?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's a big
And
face.
people
Yeah.
can-
It's,
Yeah.
Probably a couple hundred easily.
yeah, it's pretty wide, pretty long.
What if you made like a bike up and down, like almost a little loop in a sense? Not only just access to Coyote Ridge, but a way to just kind of, where's that boring?
Oh, that'd be cool. Just like a little loop that kids would ride it all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you just had a switchback up and more of a straight down, then, I mean, kids could loop it or they could go up to Coyote Ridge.
I tell you what the stairs could also do, because it's long enough, I think, that, a lot of us like to do hill repeats, and we use hills like that to do hill repeats or stair repeats. So that would be a nice little stair area to run up, walk down, run up, walk down.
Multi-purpose.
I know. Love
Let you
it.
run it.
So, I mean, do we think that's what we want to focus our effort on? And you know, Patrick said might have to spend a couple thousand doing the design for it, but, you know, ask that they go ahead with that.
That's what I recommend.
Do we need a vote on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So does someone want to make a motion? I'll make a motion. All right. So motion to, for the 2016 playground improvement, using the $35,000 Conservation Trust Fund, be towards embankment slide and improvements to hillside along Pirate Park.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. So Patrick, that's a small enough expenditure that you probably don't need to get the board's approval, is that right? Or should we take this to the board for approval?
No, I mean, I think we'll take it out of that 35, and why don't, you know, should we say if the design work's maybe more expensive than $5,000, I'll come back to the group and let you guys know. Is that a reasonable dollar amount? I mean, that's where I think it'll probably come in, to do some really basic kind of slope analysis and a kind of quick and dirty landscape plan, plus a budget that we could follow.
Okay.
And that'll leave us like 30,000 to actually do the work.
Yeah. You know, and then if it's something that comes back and it's more than the 35, then we also have an opportunity to make we'll have the info if we wanted to make a CIP request, or start saying an out year, we'd like more from Conservation Trust Fund.
So for me, I think it's, I really like the idea as long as we tie it in with the bike access to Coyote Ridge.
Yeah, I think
Because
that's
I think
what,
that's a key thing that we've been talking about, and I think it's a key improvement that can do dual purpose for, you get a slide out of the deal, but yet you still get the access that's required up to the Coyote Ridge. So, I mean, I think it's, a benefit in both.
yeah, I think the designs should
'Cause
definitely
it's
include a
it's more than
staircase
just
and a
park
bike.
amenity, it's also a trail
Yeah.
amenity for the Coyote Ridge that, I know people have stated that, they don't want to change it too much, but on the other hand, we want to make sure there's accessibility and access.
So are we guaranteed to have a trail from Coyote Ridge to Pirate Park? Is that a guarantee?
It's not
I don't know.
it's not a
I'm
guarantee,
requesting.
but, I mean, that's what's
trails
been
are there.
discussed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the social trails are there. Does the motion
Yeah.
include
I
the?
put it in there.
Okay.
Improvements to the hillside and access to Coyote Ridge trail system, trail network, I'll probably put in there.
Uh-huh. And then maybe that, bicycle accessible?
Would multi-use, do you guys
Whatever the-
multi-use?
Whatever the words are,
Okay.
but just so that it's not, if it was stairs going up so you could walk up, that wouldn't, then bikes
Right.
couldn't use it.
Well, it probably needs both,
Right.
is what I think. It probably needs a stair access as well as some type of switchback
Can you
that
flip back a
could be
couple slides?
bike accessible.
I will say, stairs, anything other than basic landscaping, if we do stairs, we're far exceeding 35.
Well, and by
like-
stairs, I'm thinking just like railroad ties and crusher
Okay.
That's
fine.
like, the top left is like an image of a trail stairs, not
Yeah.
Yeah.
concrete stairs at
That-
the bottom left, should be a difference in cost.
Yeah.
And then if
For
there's,
sure.
Some sort of trail that loops around to access the top, it's more ADA accessible or.
And maybe there's potential for like some volunteer hours or something where we could do something like, just get together with the Velo Stop and like try and do a little volunteer effort.
Yeah, definitely, I
That could
think
be
like
another-
the little bike trail, I think we could probably get volunteers to build that.
Yeah.
Youth Corp?
For sure.
Yeah. Get some of those guys in Orange from Boulder County. They love to come out and do work.
All right.
They built a whole bunch.
The people who put the bus stop in, the Boy Scouts put the bus stops in or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, if you build something like that and eliminate.
No,
fee-
the town hired someone to do the bus stops.
Were there one?
There was, yeah, Match Slides did, not Match Slides, one of them did a bus stop, something did a bus stop, yes.
Just from my own knowledge, do you know how many other basketball courts are in Superior Parks?
So
I know there's one at
There's,
town.
Founders.
Founders,
Standalone
the
courts.
one on the west end of Community, very west end of
Right.
Community. There will be the one at El Dorado. Those are the 3 full courts. And then you have the ones at El Superior and El Dorado
Yeah, the
schools. Um, yeah.
The one area we've talked about, a basketball court, totally changed we discussed it, you'd have to actually go to the town, or go to the people who live around, the sledding hill off of Indiana, where Indiana comes to an end of that lake, where Indiana intersects with Riverbend. There's that sledding hill there, and then the top, there's just nothing there at all,
Yeah.
except for a park bench, but we also discussed that would be an opportunity for half court, that would also be discussed with the homeowners there too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, because Riverbend and Circle Park right now have no play amenities right now, so. Okay, so moving on to item number 4, the 5-year trail plan. So thank you everyone for filling that out such short notice. We got everyone's response except for George.
I don't
so-
get all the right emails, Patrick knows that, so when you guys send out this meeting agenda, it does not come through with my iPhone. I'll show you right now. I try to open it, and it comes up as I have to open up a file, and it will not allow me to open up the file.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you would have had to do this on a computer to fill it out. You wouldn't have been able to fill it out on your iPhone.
I could print a hard
Um,
copy if we need to.
If you want to still,
No,
if you wanna get a
we got it
printout-
right. I got it right here, and just take a look at it.
yeah, if you want to get a printout of it from Patrick and fill it out, I can add you.
That's fine.
But, it's got the average of 8 in here. So, I mean, it probably won't change too much, but, I mean, of course, we want to include your responses if you want to give them. So, the way this came out, the top 1, 2, 3 didn't, I mean, you can see it didn't quite come out as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still the 1, 2, 3 are in the top 5 or whatever. So, they basically came out with the priorities being the trails along McCaslin, as we've been discussing, for what's being looked at by the town this year, and then Davidson Mesa underpass, some type of connection to Davidson Mesa underpass came out as a high priority. When you start going down, the rest of it, I was actually kind of surprised that FICO ditch seed money kind of came up pretty high there. That's not one we've talked about too much. But, you can just take a look at if you want to take a look real quick and see how it turned out.
Yeah, I think that trail would be really cool, just because there's just so much of the open space in the middle that's just closed, and it sort of starts to open it up a little bit. But this was hard for me because we had so much feedback, like, as a group, that when I went to do it, it was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't want to, like, mess up our order or something I wrote Peter an email, like, I don't want to mess everything up. I think we've already done a lot of this work, and so I don't want to, like, change the priorities, but.
Well, and that's.
It's like, just go for it.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
trying to
that's
get a
the thing.
nice fresh look and see
We're
what we
trying
wanna
to
do.
get as unbiased a look as we can, so not taking into account what's already been, funded this year,
Mhm.
at least with the construction bid.
Because some of these are done, right? Some of these are spec.
Well, no, so I mean, a number of them, if you remember that we had made our list for the year, which had, was primarily the trails along McCaslin.
Mhm.
And those are being looked at. The money that was approved by the board was to get basically the engineering and the construction bid, the RFP done on it. They're yet to actually be funded and for construction. So the board will have to come back and look at whether they want to, give additional funds for the actual construction of those this year, or if they might be done in out years still. But they're at least being looked at more closely than they have before. And then a couple of them are going to be paid for by developers. But again, we didn't really want to bias our responses on the importance of those trails just because they're going to be built by developers.
Okay.
And I had a hard time with just whether it's something that the town of Superior can do or if it's Boulder County. You know,
Well, yeah,
whether it's
so-
the underpass, you know, or even, you know, the FICO, that 15 or the 5, it seemed like they were getting into the Boulder County open space just to the
Yeah,
west.
so a couple of those, the FICO Trail, the one that would go out to 128, and there was another one too, the connection from the other one from Indiana to 128. Those would be on Boulder County open space, so they would be seed money. They're not outright trails that the town would be building. Everything else is on town property, but those ones are not.
Seed money, meaning we wouldn't be guaranteed anything.
Well,
It'd be
we
a
would,
while
I mean.
to try and bolster the discussion, but.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously wouldn't be giving them any money unless they agreed to it, but we would say to the county when we do the county recommendations of, you know, we can offer X number of dollars to, you know, entice you to build this.
I thought that Boulder County said absolutely no way to that trail up through there to 128.
Well, they met with OSAC, right? Someone
Yeah,
from-
Jeff Moline to talk about the connection south of High Plains Drive.
Is that all they talked about?
And then Shan Trailhead.
What does that have to do with Boulder County? That's town.
No, that's a joint purchase. There's an easement that Boulder County contributed to the purchase of Shan.
Oh, they did, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know if they've said no to that one or not.
Which number, Joe?
The trail that would
12.
go,
Number 5 and 12.
yeah, the ones that would go
They're
from
kinda combined.
Indiana and
Yeah.
Colton Trailhead out to 128.
Oh, yeah, I don't. Actually, I think looking at that Greenway Trail, that connection from South Indiana up to 128, if I'm kind of remembering where they were, one of those I think kind of had that in there. But I think it's still on the table. I could look and follow up with the group because I think we've had that as one of our trail recommendations.
Years ago, but then
And
I
then
thought it got pulled
maybe I'll
off.
try to dig around and see what the response was.
Part of it got pulled off because of the connection coming from the
Yeah.
Rocky Flats
Okay.
area. And that, they tried to remove the trail for that reason. But I also thought that Boulder County was saying no. But I could be wrong.
There's also pretty dramatic grade through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that the trail, it's been discussed behind, from Davidson Mesa potentially behind Sagamore, that they had major concerns with due to grade and drainage and topography, and then the agricultural use down in there as well.
So, as a reminder, OSAC's going to fill this out in the same way we did. And so the hope is that we can combine our list with theirs, get a joint list, and then we need to agree, each committee needs to agree whether that's what we want to push forward to the board. I mean, looking at this, does anyone have any concerns with going forward with this list when we take it to OSAC? I mean, do we feel like this came out basically the way that we would have hoped it would? I mean, we can state our concerns over the seed money trails about whether those really belong on the Boulder County recommendations and not on our 5-year trails plan, if we think that's an issue.
Or maybe just show them differently or something, because I think what we've come to decide is that we want all the trails in one place so people understand what they are. too.
We do, Yeah, that's true. I mean, just so you know, OSAC took a version of this, the OSAC chair did. He marked it up all color-coded. And he had all these notes for, you know, whether it's being built by a developer, whether it's been given some money by the board for this year. I felt that was gonna bias the results. I wiped all that clean. Patrick seemed to agree with me that was not gonna get a clean result if we had, you know, basically asterisks on like every other trail. It was just gonna be confusing, and it probably would have resulted in some, like if we had said, you know, this has been funded, and you thought, well, then it doesn't need to be high priority, but that's not what we want. We wanna know that those are still the highest priority trails, even though they have some funding.
Can you scroll back to the top again?
So it seems like that to me, that if we're not all using the same information to populate this between the two groups,
They will hopefully not.
that we're gonna get apples and oranges here and.
No, I told
Or at least apples and
Ken
vodka mix
and
drinks.
Patricia that I, you know, for the reasons I just stated, why they shouldn't send out that color-coded sheet. And I don't know, I haven't heard back from them again, so I don't know what they're gonna decide to do. But I certainly hope they're gonna send out exactly what I sent out to the PROSTAC committee. And that way, there shouldn't be any biases.
But we're also talking about the same numbers. I mean, they're looking at the same map that we were.
They're looking at the
at.
same map, it's just, yeah, I mean, they had all these comments they had like 4 or 5 different notations and color coding across the entire list of trails.
I could see them saying, oh, well, this one has to have this seed money, so I'm not even gonna I'm gonna put it low because we're probably never gonna get it. Where we're not considering that, we're just considering, do we want this trail or not?
Exactly, that's
the big difference.
Yeah, and I feel that's the best way to look at it. Don't think about seed money, don't think about developer funding or board funding. Just think about if these are the trails that we want.
And that's the direction we've been getting on a lot of things, you know, don't even consider whether the public is upset about it or not. Just, do we think that that's an important trail to have? And so, I think.
Yeah, you're right, because the board has said to us many times over that we should not be concerned with how much things cost or other political concerns. I mean, we just need to be purely thinking about, you know, what's best for the town as far as, you know, parks and trails.
Mm-hmm.
And those other items, the cost and any other concerns can be dealt with further down the road.
So just glancing at this quickly and looking at what I rated things, you know, it came out about what I thought it would come out. Maybe some things are a different priority, but okay, they weren't like the top, you know, 1, 2, or 3. They were, you know, changing 6 for 9. Does that really matter? Not really to me.
No. And, you know, like I said, we're gonna combine this, see how OSAC's list comes out, and then we'll have to see whether or not we agree with the combined list, or we wanna, you know, ask that things be shuffled a little bit. I mean, just off the, you know, first glance, I'm gonna guess like that Shan Shan trailhead, that's probably gonna come up higher on OSAC's list than ours. They added it, that's a priority for them. So that, you know, on the joint list will probably get bumped up. So it's things like that we'll have to deal with, whether or not, you know, we're comfortable with it going forward, or if we want to, you know, make a point of saying this is our reason why we think it should be lower.
It seems like too, there's opportunities to like kind of finalize some gaps and like kind of maybe strategically, like maybe, okay, if we do these, then, you know, then everything's connected along the castle or whatever. There's like those types of things that we could do depending on how it all comes together. Just to like make some complete connections, or I know there's a couple strategies to take, so.
Well, and overall, I mean, I think that, you know, we've done a great job of compiling it so it's all the same. Now it's just a matter of how we see it with OSAC, and I think the chart's going to tell us that. The only thing I see is that sometimes I dive into the details of some of these and say, well, like the Shan Shan, like how do you even do that? Is that an access off of McCaslin? And when you exit off of there, are you going to align with the roadway across to the east, you know, and how's the traffic come in and out? Because I've seen it just with the access here, you know, that people were doing U-turns for a while, just how you cross traffic and things like that, and what other issues it may cause. You know, or where you really get into that parking.
My guess is it would be a turn off of McCaslin, but when you come out, you would only be able to go
Yeah, do
southbound.
right in, right out.
Yeah, so then people are gonna be coming down here, doing a U-turn, driving back up, pulling in, and then when they leave, they go up and do a U-turn at Key Bank and come back down.
We
You
could
know,
put
s-
another circle there.
Well, exactly, but those are,
On
those
the
are the type
hill.
of things that, you know, when you say that's a great place for a, you know, access, but it's like,
Well, and-
there's a lot more traffic pattern than just.
So when you say trailhead, like actual like parking area?
That's what
I
they
assume
want.
that's what a trailhead is.
That's
Yeah,
what-
there's some-
Isn't it like really, like you're talking right here on the hill going up? past
Yeah.
those?
That's what OSAC wants.
Okay.
Like,
I think,
where-
and the county's very much in favor of that.
Oh, I thought they weren't in favor of it.
where that house is,
I thought they said
guessing
it
where
was
it's
too
level
close to
down there.
Colton
You
Trail.
pull
Yeah,
in,
they originally
Park
told
down
us,
there.
one of the conversations were, you know.
And then there would
The-
be a trail.
the
connecting
one
to that.
south-
Close to Colton, they don't
Yeah,
want even.
I think the
great.
pushback
Drive
that's
through the
occurring at
old
Third
towers,
Avenue
get
and
there.
the safety
And then
of
you
having
park up
that
here
street
and
double
park
parked
up
has
here.
changed some opinions.
It's a perfect place.
Yeah.
I got a question about 14. Construction soft trail along the west boundary of Sagamore between trail. Was that what you were just talking about with Boulder County?
Yeah,
And
actually-
having some current? Some concerns
Yeah,
about
so,
that, or
and
what?
actually, the one thing that we did kind of catch after that is, so the trail that had been shown behind Sagamore that would connect to Davidson Mesa, the county has said that that's not a feasible trail. And actually, that's probably, so you'll see, it would, the solution, one of the solutions now would be to have a bike lane on 76th. But the county was not interested in having access through the open space over by that Davidson Mesa underpass.
Well, and your drawing shows access on.
Yeah,
Davidson.
so that's, and I apologize, that's a discrepancy
west
between the
to
narrative here, so that's a good catch, George, the
Is
discrepancy.
that going to be wiped out, done for, or what are we going to do with it? I mean,
Here,
because if
let's-
you're going to put a trail behind somebody's house that's lived there for the last 15 years, maybe we should go knock on their door and ask them if they want one or
Right, so
not,
no,
you
this
know?
this trail
Let's have
won't,
some respect for people
yeah,
from this
this
town.
trail won't go in over there.
Well, yeah, and obviously, any of this stuff is just ideas. So you're right. I mean, if, it sounds like it wouldn't go in behind the Sagamore houses anyway, but if it were, I mean, that would have to be a public discussion, like you're
That's
saying.
76.
That's
because-
76, so that'd be the bike lane that he was talking about,
Right.
putting
Yeah.
right here on this map.
And kind of going back to Corey's point, and I don't know if you guys were able to kind of get through the lengthy update, but we did run into some of that. You know, we'd have that trail in front of the Ridge townhomes from basically the terminal reservoir. So just kind of by Key Bank down to High Plains Drive along that kind of sweeping curve there on McCaslin. And we had a couple of design engineers who absolutely said that huge safety concerns, huge ADA concerns, significant grade concerns. So I could see where you're coming from a little bit, Corey, and saying that some of those bigger picture items should maybe be considered. And something we started talking about is, you know, maybe as part of this process, we actually bring in a trail engineer to kind of do that entry feasibility. Because I was surprised to find out that trail was maybe not a safe trail, and
Well, I
that
think
they
there's
actually don't
also
recommend putting it in
Fire
there.
truck access right off of the right-hand side, because there's only one entrance up there, so the
Mhm.
fire truck also comes in off the backside. You can kind of see that grade kind of taper off and go up to the right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just other questions, you
Mhm.
know.
Complete, yeah. And I think as we work through the process, I'm trying to think, Daryl and Peter, Aaron's been here for a while. For the most that I can remember, this is the first time that we're building a significant number of trails, at least in the 6 years that I've been here.
And
Yeah.
I appreciate the map, but to me, trying to make the decisions, seeing the existing trail on there, I mean, I could follow the trails and everything, but seeing the existing trails help me say, there's a gap here, or no, there's a trail right on the other side of the road, so there's a light so you can get to it. So therefore, is that one a critical one or some other link that doesn't have a trail? And that's why, you know, for me, that number 1 trail seemed to be the one along Colton that doesn't have one on either side of Colton. You know, so it's just, or sorry, it was McCaslin, anyway. McCaslin from Colton up to.
Yeah, from the south, so that
Yeah.
it connects the south side
Because
down
that one's
to
on the
Colton
eastern
Trail.
side of
Yeah.
McCaslin, but there's a trail along McCaslin on certain areas, the Crushers, and it's on the east side, but not on the west side.
Yeah.
You know, so just seeing that on here just helps understand where, for me, the priorities are.
Mhm.
To
And,
get the full network.
you know, just to kind of echo George's concern about, you know, trails close to houses, I mean, the number 7 trail is still one that's being looked at by the town this year, but that's one that will probably have to be, there's going to need to be some public discussion over it, because that goes in a greenway between houses. So, you know, that's not a done deal. It's on our list, but it's not a done deal that it's going to
Understand,
happen.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
look at it.
Well, let's hope some of these are gone next time we go through this.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So,
half of that trail
you know,
should be down in the park.
we'll forward this on, I'll share this with OSAC, let them fill it out. We'll do a combined list. I don't know if we'll look at the combined list next month, or it might not be till July, because I don't know if they might not get to it until their June meeting. And so we might not come back until July with this, so. Okay, so moving on to item number 5, the recreation facility usage fees. Patrick was able to get some information from other municipalities, as we had requested last month.
All right. So we're still doing a little bit of work with the City of Boulder. And actually, I was mentioning to Peter, I'll probably ask you guys for just a little bit more firm direction tonight. But this is just kind of a quick snapshot on what it looks like for pool access fees with Erie, Lafayette, Louisville, and Superior. And then we've done a little bit of digging around on swim team prices. The one thing that was really, really apparent right off the bat is it's almost impossible to compare apples to apples, because some are year-round facilities. Some don't have swim lessons, some don't have swim teams, some do have swim teams. But we did our best to kind of capture a little bit of what that looks like. And as you can see, and we've known this for a long time, is that we give the swimming pools away for free, and that's philosophically what the town's chosen, and that's worked. It's absorbed into the general fund for operating. We were able to do a little bit of follow-up. The City of Boulder's pricing almost didn't make a whole lot of sense with this, because there were so many aquatics pieces to it, but we will follow up and kind of fill in the spreadsheet there. But just kind of scrolling over, you could see that we went into rentals, resident, non-resident, pool parties, things like that. And Superior's that bottom one there, so you could kind of see that we're, again, kind of across the board on the lower end of the fees. We were able to chat with the staff over in Louisville about their swim team. They operate their swim team very, very consistent to the way that Rock Creek Flyers operates. In 2015, they charged a little over $9,000 for use of Memory Square Pool. About the same hours, maybe actually a little bit less than the swim teams here. And then you could see comparatively the number that we charged Rock Creek Flyers.
Do they have the same number of members in the swim team as we typically do?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
did.
the same dollars per person, at their...
I didn't ask about registration. The municipality itself, we could maybe contact the Louisville Dolphins, but I just pulled the information from looking at it municipal to municipal, what they charged is compared to what we charged. And then they were actually, the indication they gave us is that they're actually increasing this fee to be north of $10,000. But it's, so, but we could track that down and see what their numbers look like. My guess is that it's probably, about 150 to 200, similar to what Rock Creek Flyers would be. And I'm not familiar with how much they charge or what the Flyers charge. I looked it up at one point for a previous presentation. I could probably circle back around to that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they're passing on all that cost to the swimmers.
And that's for the same,
I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, they may have more swimmers. I mean, if the Louisville
well,
swim
the
team
question
is
would
30
be,
kids.
is the Rock Creek Flyers have a profit margin built in since it's it's not a
Patrick, on a different
nonprofit
question,
group?
all these facilities are different sizes, though. I mean, Erie has a lot more amenities and different type of activities within the facility once you get in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at Superior has like lap swim, and the South Pool has
Mhm.
little amenities for like little kids and tots, the wade-in pool. Louisville, we're talking just the Louisville Rec that has the one water slide and the one lap swim area.
And Memory Square Pool, which is the outdoor
But you
pool.
gotta
Okay,
also
and the
look
outdoor.
at, Lisbon
Yeah.
and Lafayette operate 365, they have an indoor
Yep.
pool.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what you gotta look at. You gotta
and
compare
something
apples,
Right,
apples are
that's why I'm
apples, oranges,
like,
you
there's-
gotta compare.
and
the
something
numbers
else
here
that you
total.
have to consider as part of this is each one of these jurisdictions has an adopted cost recovery plan. So their fees for access to their facilities are going to be based on a goal to recoup a certain amount of operating cost, where that's not what we do.
Yeah.
But-
But it's also
we're
that-
fortunate that the general fund can kind of cover
Their
it.
operating cost is probably higher with some of those facilities because like the Erie
Yeah.
facility is huge. and,
Year-round staff,
Year-round
correct.
staff, year-round swim, different type of amenities.
The
It's just a
closest
different
comparable would
comparison.
be, my guess is the closest comparable would be, the Memory Square pool, which is the outdoor seasonal pool. Or if we were, Broomfield, I don't even know. if
They have like splash.
They've got
They
the
have
bay.
Yeah, the bay.
We could maybe do a little bit of looking around at seasonal outdoor municipal swimming pools.
Lafayette has
Knowing
one.
some of
Lafayette's
these
got one.
pools, it just makes me question the comparison.
But
And even-
the
Those all
swim
sound
team
like
comparison, though.
Right.
You're saying that 9,200 for Louisville swim team, that's for use at Memory Square,
Correct.
just for like the same kind of 3-month period that Rock
Correct.
Creek Flyers use.
Right.
So that one is actually pretty close,
Yeah, that one.
because that's not like $9,200 for 12 months. It's only the summer months at a similar sized outdoor pool.
So, and maybe I missed this, what is the purpose of what we're trying to figure out? Are we trying to just not pay as much for the pool from the city, trying to recoup some more of that cost? Is that the purpose of this? Or what is our end goal that we're really looking at for evaluating these? What do we want to get out of it?
Whether we want to recommend to the board that they're charging too little or
And that's to
just
help-
enough for facilities compared to other surrounding municipalities.
So the end game would be, the recommendation would be to help offset the cost the city's paying for these facilities on their own? Okay.
Correct. Now, Patrick, were you able to make any sense of field fees?
We haven't looked at field fees. We focus most of our time here on aquatics, but we can easily add that in.
Okay.
But there's nothing we can do about aquatics for this year. This is a year out before we could even touch this topic, because there's no way you change fees for aquatics at this point.
We would,
No.
as part of the budget discussion this year for next year is when, so.
Okay.
I think as long as some kind of recommendation before the end of summer, or maybe midsummer.
Okay, so, we'll wait on staff to come up with a little bit more information on both pools and see if they can pull together some information on field fees as well. And we'll just revisit this again. Well, I guess our end goal would be whether or not we want to make any recommendation as part of the the budget recommendations that go forward to the board of whether or not they should be looking to change.
And Patrick, I think you submitted this a couple months ago. I have to go back and look. What the city is spending on these facilities? Wasn't that submitted to us a few months ago? Because, I mean, I'm just kind of trying to do some math in my head, like, well, in order for the city to really, to really recognize any savings, what would we really have to realistically increase fees up to per person for their ID card pass and for the Rock Creek Flyers for the city to even notice, any savings?
Yeah.
What saving, is $10,000 enough for the city to even notice, or is it
Yeah.
$50,000, or is it $100,000?
Now, we're at about $135,000 per month.
With chemicals or what? I mean,
Well, all of it. Actually, I have that number. I'll pull that number up because we worked.
Could you
into
send
that.
us the whole packet of the information you pulled on the pools and this information by email? I mean, for me, it's very hard for me to look at this at a meeting and have it sitting up there. I can't look at the whole thing,
Sure.
so it's hard for me to even make any
And-
viable
And more
comments
direction
on it
on
at this point.
specifically what we want, I think will help. Because it's not apples to apples.
Do you guys keep a number of, or does Rock Creek Flyers keep a number of how many participants they have per year?
That would be on them. Yeah.
Well, don't they turn it in, because they do it per?
Yeah, they do it per participant, so I mean, you could work the number backwards, divide, the 1250 by 18, the 1800 by 1250.
I was just wondering if we're going up or going down.
It's flat. Yeah, that number, that 18 is, I think I've maybe seen it a little bit lower, but it's almost always between 16 and 18.
Is $12.50 what you charge a baseball?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just our flat, a
Yeah.
kid on a field, in a pool,
Yeah,
on
we went to that because
the hour was too.
it's almost too much to try to schedule things by the hour. Now, some places do. It's been recommended to us to come up with a per lane per hour cost to operate your swimming pool. Places are going to a per lane per hour cost. That factors in everything from I've seen some spreadsheets that'll factor in from your city manager all the way down to your janitor, a percentage of their time. Just, plus chemicals, plus toilet paper, plus heating and air. I mean, some people to get to a per lane, I've seen fees $30 per lane per hour at aquatic
So like an
facilities.
hourly rate to go.
An hourly rate to be in a lane. So if you have an elite facility and you have a competitive swim team, and you're going to swim in a lane, that's $60 for 2 hours just for that one lane. So it runs the gamut, and something that we run into when you get jurisdictions that'll price compare against each other is you have to look at what the cost recovery philosophy is for the jurisdiction.
But, you said direction. I think our direction is primarily focused on team usage, and whether or not that means per hour or if that's a per player fee. But, that's what we discussed before. I think we're less concerned with what it would cost a resident to rent a fee, because that's going to happen far less often. It's the more weekly usage that teams do that we're concerned about.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, I just did some quick math here, and you said roughly $135,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
Around there, give or take. But, so is that based on a 12-month, or is that based on just the time it's open?
Just the time it's open.
Okay, so the time is open, say a few months, so that's, you're still talking $500,000, $600,000, and we're talking roughly maybe $10,000 out of $500,000 or $600,000. I mean,
Well, but I think that the other things that we've also talked about, they're opening the pool early for the Flyers. The public can't get into the pool until May 27th, and it's going to be open for them. They have hours that residents can't go because they take it over in the morning. So there are things like that. I know that happens with the fields as well, but that's part of it. There are a lot of additional costs to the pool, the facilities, that factor in, and,
Yeah, I think the other piece that comes in here, if we've got the cheapest game in town, in the whole, corridor, it makes it more attractive for other people to come and want to use our fields too. That increases the wear and tear on the fields. So if you're the cheapest people in town, people want to be on your fields, it's going to increase the wear and tear. So to not be trying to recover something from these organizations, we're never going to cover the cost completely. But why should we be subsidizing the cost of these groups that are making a profit? I mean, they're quite possibly making a profit off this, and we should be charging them a competitive fee. I'm not expecting us to ever cover the cost of having the fields out there or having the pools, but at the same time, the town of Superior is not a charity, and we need to be running as a business.
But from this chart, though, I mean, I'm also asking the question, Erie's got a fairly recent facility, and are they paying off the facility as well? And Superior's pools have been installed for a long time, so we're doing operation and maintenance, and they're paying off the facility. So my other question would be is, if I charge $60 a month per resident, are we getting recreation facilities added on top of just the outdoor pools? Because that's one thing we hear all the time is, the recreation facilities.
Well, and that's right. That's why there's no apple to apples here, because what the card/pass fee for Erie, Lafayette, Mooseville, those are rec center fees. So it's more than just the pool.
Exactly.
So I mean,
What about the guest fee? $2 for the town of Superior charges $2 for a guest fee?
Yep.
If you have a non-resident guest,
do you think we should raise the price to $5? Start there?
That's a question for, that's, the board
I
can
mean,
certainly
let's
make
make
that
a decision. I mean, we gotta somehow figure out how to come back this up. Rock Creek Flyers charge $300 per kid per season.
Yeah, I looked at the Dolphins, it's $265 per swimmer.
That's for non-resident.
$250.
Yeah, $250 for resident and then $265 for non-resident.
So Dolphins are paying less for their registration, but they're paying more for their pool usage fee?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's all stuff we need to take into consideration when we make a recommendation.
Yeah, because all these places, if you're out of town, or like if you go and take a swim at Louisville, you're paying every time. You can get a punch card or whatever, but
Yeah, and you're paying a non-resident.
And you pay
You're
non-resident.
paying non-resident.
yeah.
but you can't be
Can you
an.
repeat that, what you said about the Flyers and the Dolphins?
$300 for the first, $300 for the first year, and then there's a discount for the returning year.
And then that's the Dolphins?
No, it's Rock Creek Flyers.
Just remember, though, we're not in a position to evaluate what they're charging their individual swimmers for their dues, because we don't know what their overhead costs are. They might be paying coaches on top of whatever they're paying for.
Oh, sure they are.
The facility fees. They might be paying for training for their coaches and all that kind of stuff. So there's all these other, that's how we operate. And they're probably also nonprofits, so they can't work on a profit. They're nonprofit organizations. So I would imagine that most of their income goes back into the organization, pays for services and.
I don't know that
uniforms and
Rock Creek
whatever.
Flyers is actually nonprofit. They would need to clarify that, but I don't know that they are.
They may not be, I assume that most of the youth sports organizations are nonprofits, like Mustang, YMCA, a nonprofit, Superior Rugby is a nonprofit. So I think that most of the organizations are. And a lot of those coaches are volunteers and all that. So I would imagine those fees go to things that are necessary.
So do we need to increase the price for a resident to go swimming at our pools? More than $5?
That's a non-resident fee, right?
Non-resident or
So-
resident with
For
ID
guest.
card with pass, $5?
You have to pay $5 for the ID card
One
once.
time, $5.
Just one,
One
so do we
time.
need to up our price on
Had it
that?
for like 10 years.
Yeah, there isn't currently no fees to get in. So
So
Right.
in order to cover some of the maintenance on the pool, I think maybe we should look into raising our prices.
I mean, that could very well.
I totally agree with Sandy. We're not a charity case for out-of-towners or for anybody. I mean, we're, as taxpayers, paying it out of our own pockets for this
How much
How much of that goes into
$135,000.
the?
You can't actually
HOA
go to the
fees?
pool as an out-of-town, I mean, you can go as a guest, but you can't from Louisville go to our pools without going with someone.
Correct.
So the
And
price needs to go up.
that's
then.
per time you go is $2. It's not pay $2 once. So the Superior residents pay $5 for a card, and then they go all summer long.
Mm-hmm.
The out-of-town guests pay $2 per person per visit.
Okay.
And we normally make, I'd say we normally make about $5,000 to $6,000 a year off of guest fees. And then almost always, for whatever reason, 4,000 on ID cards. It must be the magic number of people that lose their ID cards
That
every
lose
year.
them. Isn't the
We could do a
replacement
study.
fee $15 though?
What's that?
Is the replacement fee, I thought the replacement fee was more than that. I thought it
It's
was-
5.
Is it?
So
And
is
you're
that
only
something
allowed
that
to
we
go
need to
3
look
times
into?
without a card.
Do we need to
Yeah.
look into raising our
Yeah.
prices?
I mean, so, all right, the pools being free, that's a long-standing decision of the town. So we could certainly recommend that that should no longer be the case. But that's a little bit different than what we're saying a private group such as the Rock Creek Flyers are paying. The residents, that's basically being paid by our property taxes. So it's not like we're not paying anything. We're not paying a usage fee on top of whatever our taxes are paying for. That's the difference between us and some of the other towns. But for a private group to be, we're looking at potentially paying like, 1/5 of the cost that a group in the town right next to us is paying for the same usage of a pool. That's something that I think we're more concerned with. And same with fields. What are private groups using to use the town's fields versus other towns' fields? We're not so concerned about what residents are using the fields for. If they just want to go out there and kick a ball, they shouldn't have to pay $5 to use a field type thing. We're talking about private groups, teams.
But we don't rent out the fields to private groups, right?
Well, that's what
Yeah.
we're
We
looking
don't.
All
at.
the time.
Sure
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like
Well,
that.
Just not Founders Park. Okay, that's what I was getting confused.
Well, yeah, because that can't be reserved, so that's a drop in.
But it can be if you are T-ball.
T-ball.
So what's the decision that we need to make on this?
We don't need to we need more information still from staff before we can make a decision.
So
Well,
we
and
know, are all the Rock Creek Flyers Superior residents? They bring them from out of town.
My guess is it's like 90-some%. We've asked them that before, and it's all of our groups have a really high number, with the exception of baseball. Baseball tends to be mixed between Louisville and here.
So again,
And
this is.
I'm sorry, and football now, because football has combined. So that'll be,
Well, you got Broomfield Soccer coming, you got.
yeah, and Broomfield Soccer is still renting it they pay us by the hour. We haven't extended to them any kind of discount with the Y still playing in town.
What does Broomfield rent?
They rent Williams Field all the time.
And
For
it's,
soccer.
and
For
I
soccer.
mean, having been the former executive director at Broomfield Soccer, I can tell you, we went, woo-hoo, what a sweet deal at Superior. And so we absolutely said we want to rent those fields as much as we could because they were cheap.
SC Bowl.
Plus, they were lighted.
FC Boulders out
You
They're
know.
there.
First come, first served.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
once-
first come, first
I
served,
reserved
but
it
we
before.
absolutely said
Yeah,
these are.
once
these are-
once
and
once
now
the
we've redone
schedules
it,
are
it's even better.
submitted, so the priority groups that we work with are Superior Rugby, the Monarch Football, Monarch Little League Baseball, and we still give priority to the YMCA on those fields. So once those groups have submitted their schedules, then it's open to everybody, and I mean, we get calls from, we've had Regis Lacrosse play here. We actually have we had a team from New Mexico meet a team from Cheyenne, Wyoming and play here. We have a team from Grand Junction playing a team from Fort Collins here. So it's not uncommon that your league organizers will just start to work through and say, hey, we need space, we need space. But it's full every night. And now we've got 2 adult men's soccer teams that are wanting to be out there till about 10, and they pay a elevated rate.
We pay for the lights.
And the lights, yeah.
It's a fee plus lights.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question about this, the survey here? Do we know in each one of those towns how much of their general budget contributes toward the upkeep and all that? So that has to be considered too.
Yeah.
Um,
It is. Everybody's fee philosophy and cost recovery models are completely different. You used to kind of see this triangular model where you'd have something like really individual, like a tennis lesson or a golf lesson at the very top that had like a really individual benefit, would get no subsidy. But your summer camp for kids would get, you'd subsidize it at 70% and only try to recover 30%. But as things have gotten tighter in government, you're seeing more cost recovery where it's like, well, we want to recover 60% of all costs on all programs, and kind of going to more of that zero-based budget, similar to the YMCA. You have a goal that you need to recover. You don't do it if you don't recover that cost. So it is really difficult doing that because everybody's different, and some places won't count capital costs and staffing. So we could take, to that number I gave you, Corbett, I could take our capital improvement costs out of it, and staffing in the operating goes down to next to nothing. So it's really wild to try to compare jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Yeah, I guess where I'm having a heartache with this is that something like this is something you really need a thorough trade study on. What we would do a trade study in my company, and basically you take all the data and you put it all together in one place, and you present with your graphs and say, this is how much we're spending roughly per Superior residents on fields, on the pool. This is what the other non-Superior residents are getting, how much they're spending on average. Looking at those numbers, here's the total amount. Here's where we think we could probably recoup. This is how much it would help the town of Superior. Putting all that together, because right now, at least me mentally say, okay, I see this piece over here, I see this piece over here, and all different pieces, but they're not connected, and it's hard to make any kind of. It doesn't seem like that. We're going to have these conversations, maybe month after month after month, but until we connect all the dots and see it all presented together in one cohesive package, it's going to be hard to make any kind of recommendation. I mean, we can all come up here and say, sure, it's good to start charging guests more, but really, what does it buy us by charging guests more? We won't know that. Or we could say charge Superior residents more. Great. What do we buy us from doing that? Again, until we have one complete package, at least for me, it's going to be hard to really make any kind of recommendation.
Yeah. And what we could do, the board has provided a little bit of direction for us to push forward with the North Pool, with the study to cover the North Pool. And we could probably work some of that cost into it. I don't know that study would compare us to other jurisdictions. I think ultimately what you'd want to get to is what's the right fee for the goals that you have in town, not comparing how you operate to somebody else's town. But there will be a fees analysis in the study to cover the North Pool, including potential revenue offsets.
Yeah, I think the whole.
But it's specific to North. It doesn't involve South and.
Well, and at the same time, as you study the North Pool cover, are you going to look at a new facility? Because I bet you're pretty close.
We haven't been given direction to get pricing for a net new facility.
So you guys are still working on covering the North Pool?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
still a concept?
Well, so it'll move from concept to actually we'll present some actual budget numbers, staffing projections, and fees for the board. Yeah.
Putting a Band-Aid on.
I don't think our intent was ever to make an official recommendation. Our intent was to start looking at this and saying, are there some discrepancies there? Should we be doing things differently than we're doing them right? I mean, I'm not a fee specialist. I mean, I'm a director of finance. but money adds up for me. And so for me, I just started looking at the money and going, something, we should be looking at this at least to be prudent in maintaining and taking care of our facilities that we've got here. Should we have a different business model on them? And that's kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, I'm no fee specialist, but I see some discrepancies up there that give me pause.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anything out of here is going to be us saying we need to be charging X number of dollars. It's more general of, in our limited review, the town appears to be, undercharging, and that the board needs to consider revisiting how much they charge for fees. Like, it needs to be something much more general
It
like
seems
that.
to be that we need it complete for fields as well as just the pools. I mean.
Exactly.
So then I guess what I'm hearing is that maybe we're trying to get after this is what I was trying to ask earlier, what was the whole point of what we were trying to accomplish here? And now it seems to be clear that we're just trying to ask the board to maybe go back and take a look at what we're doing and, and say that based on what we've done, what we've seen so far is that we're really undervaluing our facilities compared to a lot of the folks, and maybe that the city should go back and look at that and compare something that they should do. Maybe that's all we're really recommending. And if that's the case, I mean, I think, that I can see clearly that we are doing, undervaluing our facilities. Now that the board may come back and say, well, that's our philosophy, we don't really need to do that, and that's great. But if we're just trying to make a recommendation to say that we think that the town should go back and look at this based on what we've seen so far, I think that's fairly easy what we could do. In fact, I would almost even think we could probably even, personally, I think we could probably do that tonight.
Yeah.
I think given the data that we have so far, if that's all we're going to do.
Yeah, do we need to make a motion to?
Well, I mean, the only thing is we don't have any informational fields, is my only pause right now. Is I think we could easily make a recommendation regarding the pool usage fees, but we don't have informational fields. So I think just so that we're comfortable with what we're saying, we should probably wait for some of that information. And we could have probably a much shorter conversation next month to make a motion. And that, again, this, along with the playground amenity upgrade, it'll be grouped in with our budget recommendations, most likely.
I mean, my personal opinion is I'd like to see this be more than a 2-sentence recommendation that we think the fees are inconsistent and we'd like the board to look at it. I mean, if we don't give them some information that is solid and says, we looked at it by comparison, Rock Creek Flyers is $1,800, Louisville is $9,200, and they're looking to increase. We really want to give them a solid something to think about. Because they got a lot on their plate, and so. But I feel like this is an important topic that we really should be not just giving it a cursory. Yeah, we see some inconsistency. We want the board to tackle it because my personal opinion is it'll go to the bottom of the barrel if we don't give them something solid.
Yeah, I agree.
Chris, can I ask you, what do you think that the board would want to hear from us?
You're going to hear different things from different board members. And this is one of those things I don't think that will be in lockstep. And in my opinion, it would be based on very personal experience with user groups in town. And specifically with the fields. And to make any recommendation of possibly raising the fees to the user groups, I would caution that, because we would end up, we provide a service to residents of this town with our program. And if our fees go up, then we're going to lose members of the organization. We're not going to be providing as much service to them. I would also, I guess I would look into bigger things, maybe with only one program in the field for the town of Superior. Maybe for now, until we have more fields that are used, maybe we don't allow outside user groups to come in and use the fields, because we just don't have the capacity for it. And we just limit it to just the user groups that are based here in the town of Superior. That would be another option that I would ask that you guys consider looking into, because we just don't have the room. A lot of the user groups that are in town have to cancel practices or not have practices at all. So you're going to hear a different opinion from me than you will from some of the other trustees on that. As far as the pools, that's a supply and demand thing. It purely is. From our experience, if we were charged a daily use fee, our kids would go to the pool as much. I mean, how do you do that? Do you charge them, they pay $5 each time they come in, or $2 each time they come in, or do you have them set up an account that you put money into and they draw from? I don't know. But there is, if you do those kind of things, then there's all the other unintended consequences that happen with it. Personally, and this is from a resident's point of view now, I like the way that our pools operate and the fee structure that we have. That's one of the nice things about our town. Just like all the green space around, we've had residents that have asked us to not use some of the herbicides to kill weeds. We want it to be more natural. Well, then you're going to get some more of those natural weeds growing up in town. It's going to take away the whole look of the town. I personally like the way our town is run right now with the pools. We have town center going in that's going to pay down a bunch of debt. We're going to have more retail sales tax revenue that's going to be driving a lot of money into the town that helps pay for those things. That's what makes Superior very unique. And if you start changing those things, like you take away the convenience. So, sorry for the long answer, but that would be my opinion moving forward. But I know that some trustees would have a different opinion. So I guess I would ask or recommend that you, instead of focusing on just increasing the fees, look at other options that we can do to make the resources that we have more available, readily available to our residents until we have more fields, more pools, and all that available to them.
And I agree, Chris. I think we need to, if we do anything here, we need to make a distinction between, residents and non-resident groups. So how that's defined, I don't know exactly. Maybe if a group has, over 50% membership of Superior residents, they're treated differently than, groups that do not. But you're right.
That's a tough impact on baseball, though.
And the YMCA, we just went through this, 6 months ago with the YMCA. The YMCA was getting the sweetheart deal for the last however many years, where we're actually paying them $30,000 a year to use our field, and then they collect the revenue. Well, that's changed this year. But, and I say, the things I say, I'm not trying to pinch the YMCA because I think they offer really good service in town, as does the Greenfield soccer. But I think that we have to really look at what we have before we really start making decisions on how it's going to negatively impact our residents.
Okay. Yeah, because that's football and baseball that we don't have a local team, really. And we have the fields.
And it's also soccer, because there's no local soccer program. They have to play either Boulder or
Right, we have
treble or
most of our kids. What we hear in the office is most of our kids are split between Broomfield,
FC
treble,
Boulder
and
and
FC
treble.
Boulder.
But Broomfield Soccer has actually offered to create another division and call it Superior Soccer. And I think that's a great idea. That's awesome. It doesn't matter if that organization is based in Broomfield, that they've got a Superior Soccer program that's based here. I think that's great. And maybe that works with them. Maybe they split the time here in Superior with just Superior residents are part of Superior Soccer, and Broomfield Soccer kids play in Broomfield. So I think you've got to think of different things other than just raising the cost. I'm not a big fan of raising fees and taxes.
So, I guess I'm confused again then. I'm sorry about that, but would it be a recommendation, and I'm not saying we're making the recommendation right now, but would we be looking to make a recommendation to raise fees or a recommendation for the city to evaluate their current fee structure, which I think is totally different, all right? We're not saying, personally, I thought the recommendation would be to maybe go back and look at how the city operates its fee structure and see if there's anything that they want to do, that we've noticed some inconsistencies from other cities, and there may be something that the city would like to do versus making a recommendation saying, oh, based on what we've seen, we think the city should raise fees. I guess that's where I was getting.
And that's where it started with me, was to look at the fee structure, because I was accustomed to what we paid in Broomfield. We had a structure that we paid a per player fee, and then we also paid to rent the fields. And that was what I was asking. When I was one of the people who first started this and said we should look at the fee structure. I'm not saying we increase or decrease the flyers, but let's just look at it, because we've been doing the same thing for probably 10 years. And we should be taking care, I mean, my personal opinion is we should be given a favorable rate to the clubs that are locally, Superior Rugby would be a fine example. It's mostly Superior kids. I mean, I don't know, but I know most of the kids are there. So I do feel that local programs should get priority, and that's absolutely what would happen in Broomfield, is the Broomfield kids were getting a priority. But the fee structure was different than what we had here. So that's what I want us to look at.
Maybe and I'd like to maybe recommend as a starting point, why don't I distribute the town's adopted cost recovery model to this group? Because it was adopted prior to me being here. I don't, maybe in conjunction with the master plan, but my guess is probably after. And we could see the last adopted policy relating to fees, and maybe use that as a starting point. Because I think if there's an adopted policy and our fees are following that, then we at least know what was once kind of a board directive, and then we can kind of go from there. Because I'm not, my guess is most people aren't familiar with the adopted policy, and it's probably, in all honesty, a little bit of an outdated policy.
But the fee structures have changed. They haven't been the same for the last
Right.
20 years. I mean, our fee structure was an hourly rate. Then when it got dark, there was another fee to use the lights, and there was all time. And then we got this monthly bill, or actually a quarterly bill.
Mm-hmm.
But the fee structure now actually is a win-win for both the town and the organization. That at $12.50, when we have very few members, it works really well to our benefit, because we won't pay as much as we would on an hourly rate. But as the membership increases, the town benefits, because we still have the same hourly usage, but they're getting more because there's more members paying that $12.50. So right now, the town is making more than the way it was 3 years ago with our organization. So it has changed, and I think it's changed for the better.
Yeah, it was the football guys actually brought to our attention. As football declined, they were still using the same amount of field time. They just didn't have the same number of kids on the field. So, we charged them like close to $6,000. Well, they didn't have that in registration. So we ended up wiping away a significant portion of what they owed, because the organizations legitimately couldn't float it. And then that kind of led to the per player fee. And then it's really complex, and it's not all that fun for staff to try to do a hour by hour monitoring of the field. So, but yeah, I'll send that out, and that'll be a starting point, and we can see where it goes.
All right, so send that out, and then.
Can I just make one comment? I'm sitting here thinking about fields versus pool and cost to maintain fields versus pool, and I wonder if that's something that we want to look at too. I mean, we're doing a $12.50 per kid, whether they're on a field or in a pool, and it might cost a heck of a lot more to run a pool than it does to run a field. And I think it's a data point, like you said, and knowing that maybe we do need to increase just a little bit to recover, to balance out, but maybe not. But it would be nice to know what it costs to run and maintain the pool and run and maintain fields.
Is that the same structure for the pool?
Yeah, it's the same per kid.
And that was we increased that a couple of years back too, because I think when I first started here it was $7, and then we.
And do you have a different fee for residents versus non-residents?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same.
It's just a one flat, and we have moved to that with the YMCA, where they will now just pay us per kid that signs up in the programs here that they offer specific in town.
And then is it just sort of a honor system that they tell you the number of kids and?
And we request kind of rosters, but yeah, that's if you really wanted to loophole it and short kids, you absolutely could. That's one of the
Well, that would-
unfortunate flaws of the system.
Unless you only have 6 kids on your baseball team every time.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, we'll take a look at what Patrick distributes, and if he gets any more information on fees with other towns, including Fields, we'll revisit that next month for further discussion. All right, so item 6, booth activity ideas for the 4th of July pancake breakfast. So I don't know if we plan to share a booth with OSAC or not. I guess that could be one discussion of whether we think we should focus on trails and combine that, do a combined booth with OSAC like we did the Chili Fest last year, or if we want to focus on something more PROSTAC specific and then, maybe do our own booth, which I think is what we did last 4th of July. I think we had our own booth. So, I mean, what's that?
Not July
Mhm.
4th.
July 4th, I think we had
Chili
our own
Fest, maybe?
booth, and Chili Fest we shared.
Oh, that's right.
We had the Frisbee.
Yeah. I like it.
What about getting leashes? Giving away leashes? Is it too controversial?
My wife would love that.
They did it at the Boulder at the Boulder Open Space, and it was a great giveaway.
Well,
Give away leash and say it's the law.
It was part of the educational
it's the
piece.
law. That's what we should say.
I pulled up in front of Williams yesterday, and God, there's a sign right there on the fence that says, "No animals allowed," with a big X through it or a cross.
And they're running their
And there were
dog out
3
there.
dogs on there.
Not only takes a dog out there, but has it unleashed and thrown the ball out there. And
Yeah.
you know how many times you see the dogs just squat
Yeah.
and do their thing on the AstroTurf?
Brand new field.
Brand new field.
Yep.
On Williams
You
Field?
missed the conversation I had with them earlier about what's going on about my life.
Well, so I guess before we talk about whether or not we're going to have any giveaway or anything, but yeah, I mean, I see probably two primary topics that we could talk to the public about at the 4th of July. One would be the dogs, and then the other would be trails. Yeah, I mean, what does everyone think about that? Or do you think there's another topic that we should discuss?
We could also discuss and let people know if we have a bigger picture, because not everybody, I talked to a lot of folks, and not everybody has the full idea of what's going in School Parcel Park, what's all going to be there and what it's going to look like. So, I mean, they just don't keep aware of that, right? So, I was talking to a lot of folks like, really? That's going to be there? That's going to be there? Especially this new
Exactly.
equipment that we added, the new fitness equipment and all that stuff. It'd be really nice to have a giant poster-sized thing of what that concept drawing of what that's all going to look like, and then people can actually see what's going on. That'd be a third topic I'd recommend.
It would be a nice follow-up to the couple of years we've been out there. So
Well, yeah, I
we
mean,
might be
that's-
building stuff.
yeah, I mean-
Something's finally being built.
Corbett's right. I mean, at this point, it's the people that aren't informed, because, I mean, certainly we have done that before at previous events when we were talking about what was going to possibly go there. But now it's done. I mean, I don't know if we could have a plan up there just to kind of answer some of those questions, because,
And
yeah,
the
I
whole
just had
conversation
someone
about-
ask me on Saturday what's going there. I mean, people still don't know.
Yeah, the whole conversation about Coyote Ridge. I mean, another easy point that you could just put something up and say, hey, these are things we're working on. Because people are also going to want to know what's going on in town center too, so it's almost usually a given at those.
We could easily make this image here poster.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great if we had pictures of some of the amenities that we know that are going in, so we could get people enthusiastic. I mean, my personal opinion is, I'm not sure I want to touch the dog thing with a 10-foot pole at this point. It seems to be that's pretty hard on both sides, and there seems to be a full court press by one side, and the other side's still kind of quiet. So I like the idea of giving out the leashes, but I just, yeah, well, and I'll be right there with you, young man. But I just think that's a little bit of a fire point in the town right now, and I'm just, since we haven't gotten any official designation from the trustees that they want us or OSEC to take it on, I'd be a little reluctant to stick my neck out there right now,
Well, yeah,
so.
I mean, we're talking about a month and a half from now, so hopefully we will have some direction from the board. I mean, I don't know if it's, when it's going to come on their agenda to discuss further. But you're right. I mean, we're not talking about it as a committee until the board asks us to talk about it.
How much
But I
does-
would support giving out the leashes.
How much, does, and I hate to put it this way, but I'm going to anyways, how much does PROSTAC kind of toot their own horn, just so the folks know all the good things that PROSTAC is doing, Hey, have you guys noticed that there are 3 straight shade structures out there that just mysteriously appeared, right? That was because we, did that. The whole school partial park that's been working for, these are the things that PROSTAC does. It's kind of tooting the horn, but it's also for them to understand exactly what are the things that we do, how we benefit the community. If they have questions on these things, they understand better who to ask, and we can show the trails and say, by the way, also we're looking at, doing these trails, or we had the Coyote Ridge community, and we heard the message loud and clear to just, not really improve it, but just to help maintain it type thing. Just as an informational for the city, because I know when I tell folks I'm on PROSTAC, they're like, yeah, well, what the heck is that? What do you do? And they don't know, period.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we could have a map of El Dorado. We could have a map of the trails, and just do a more general, come talk to us. And we're happy to talk to them about anything they want to talk about, and let them know what we do. And
Could we put up some sort of a coroplast that, just a big thing that says this is what PROSTAC has done for you over the last 2 to 3 years? I mean, how many people know about the Purple Park Pavilion? How many people, any of it. I think that's a great idea. I do think we should toot our horn, because we've done a lot, and I think most people don't realize that it's been pushed by this committee.
And OSAC has a banner. Does PROSTAC have a banner?
We do.
Okay. I can't remember.
Lost the chair. Oh.
What?
So lost the chair.
I don't know. All right. So I maybe we'll do it that way. We'll get a couple poster board out there, and then just leave it open for discussion. And I mean, I know it's kind of far off, but if anyone knows that they can be there, I actually know I will not be there. So if anyone knows they can be there to commit to some time, that would be great.
I'll double check my schedule, but I'm pretty sure I'll be there.
I'll be there.
The other thing that'd be interesting too is and you said something about, Corey, about the Frisbees. I noticed the folks that had the bigger booths were the folks or the most people visiting them were the folks who had like cornhole or something that people, want to do something there to play. And they had a lot of folks just coming by just to even play those things. So,
And we had the disc golf
Yep.
last year, as well as we had a dog water bowl and treats.
It was
but-
good and bad, though, because it takes up a lot of space, and
And
not
it kept
everyone knows how to
hitting
throw,
people.
and
Yeah.
you got to protect the booth. So, I mean, it's
And
hard
your
for people to
neighbors.
talk, so it depends on where your booth is set, and if you have a little space next to it, I think just a little cornhole or something would even be a little easier. But the discs was tying into the disc discussion that we had about, I can't think of the park.
Archery.
Autry, there you go. So, I mean, no matter what, I think it did bring a lot of people in, and they'd throw a couple discs, and then I was able to just ask them about, what other amenities do you use or don't you use, or, what do you see that you want, those kind of things.
What if we did cornhole, and if you, got it in, you could get a tree or
You
something?
get a dog leash?
Well, actually, I was thinking puppy. Give away puppies.
We'll give away.
But you could do seeds or trees or something that was a little more in keeping with.
Also, do we have I know at OSAC, they had a lot of the little trail maps and the little trail 3-letter codes at all the
Oh,
parks.
the passports
The
should
passports
definitely
and that kind of stuff
Okay.
was, really good. I know that passing that out, everyone's like, oh, I didn't even know that we had a trail map, but, it's great to see, and, those kind of things are great little handouts to keep people talking.
Is the town doing that again this year, Patrick?
We've added all the art pieces in town as well. So
Oh, find the
we
sculptures.
should have, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm optimistic
But to answer your original question, Peter, about should we merge with OSAC on this, I think number one, it depends on how many people can be there. Number two, my preference would be to just, if we're next to each other, that's fine, but we should have a separate.
I think unless
Separate.
we want to dedicate ourselves to talk about trails, we should probably be separate.
Yeah, I think that'll help us with our identity too, because the second question I usually get is, well, what's the difference between PROSTAC and OSAC?
The P.
Yeah.
And the R.
And the T.
Well, and it's a legitimate question, because the other thing is if OSAC does want to talk about trails, then you start getting into a gray area. Because the majority of the trails that you talk about in town actually are not under the purview of OSAC. So for them to be on their own talking about trails is actually, you're starting to cross, yeah, it
But it's
is
one
a
of the
slippery
things that they're pushing this
slope.
year is some of the trails.
Yeah,
You know,
which
so-
is why we do want to be involved with them, because we don't, that is not an OSAC specific topic. It's certainly PROSTAC's domain as well. All right, well, I can touch base with Patrick a little bit more on what we think we can have available. So yeah, just everyone, if you think you can be available, try to let us know at the June meeting. So we have some agreement on who can be there.
I hate to ask, but toward the end here, Patrick, you sent everything out, but just high points of the little notes that you sent out?
Sure.
Could you just give us real quick high points?
Well, we're going to do the weed and pest management program. then we can do
Oh,
that.
okay, sorry, I thought you were wrapping up. I was just like, wow, that was a quick
Well,
one.
hopefully this will be like 5 minutes. So,
Yep.
so item number 7, the review the weed and pest management program.
Not a whole lot has changed from previous years, but I'll kind of just go over what we adopted several years back, and I think this group's probably pretty familiar with it. Is ultimately we have an integrated pest management program that spans everything from mice to voles to noxious weeds to raccoons to skunks, and ultimately we try to set these thresholds to kind of let nature be until it starts to get a little bit over the top. And the one that you'll probably notice a lot this year is dandelions. That's the massive complaint. I'm getting at least a call a day, sometimes 2 or 3 a day. But we do try to take an environmentally sensitive approach to weed and pests. A lot of that includes us, we'll come out and mow really short. So if you guys have noticed, we've mowed, especially around Town Hall, really, really short, just to try to get ahead of the dandelions. We'll do some spot applications of trouble areas in hopes that we don't get seed spread into other areas. We make Vargas wash their tires at the end of the day, so they're not carrying seeds from one park to another park. And then when it does come down to it and the weeds get out of control, which they often do, we will apply low dose of chemicals to keep them under control. We also spend quite a bit of time doing hand pull. Once the weeds are at a certain height, we'll just have Vargas go out and actually pull them. We do that in the roundabouts. So we do apply synthetic chemicals for broadleaf weed control. Boulder County does some big broadcast sprays in open space. We generally don't do a lot of weed control in open space, nor do we do pest control in open space. We have run into issues where voles will come from the open space in the winter months and get into people's personal properties, which has caused us some issues. So on occasion, we have had to be a little proactive about treating for voles to reduce the amount of property damage for homes that back up to open space. We also treat for mosquitoes. That's one I've already gotten significant number of phone calls about, what's the town going to do for Zika virus and what does the town do for West Nile virus. And so we do mosquito counts. We treat algae in the ponds to make sure that the ponds stay clear. So we do apply chemicals when it comes to mosquitoes and the town's ponds. Our guys are still very proactive in testing, less harsh chemicals. Tommy, unfortunately, is the one who has to post the notices, so he's been dubbed the bee killer. And I will have everybody know that we have a contact in the county that when we do find beehives, we do have them moved, and there's a professional company that humanely moves them and relocates them. So we are sensitive to the fact of not wanting to endanger birds, bees, monarch butterflies, the whole 9 yards. And our guys are constantly looking for organic ways to treat weeds. And actually, some of what you're seeing with the dandelions is probably us being a little bit more lax lately on wanting to treat weeds. And it's, in all honesty, in terms of complaints, it's bit us in the butt a little bit because we're getting a lot of complaints about dandelions, a lot of complaints.
What are they complaining about?
Just that they spread. And they're getting into personal properties. They're making the parks look a little less inviting. So we're actively working to deal with some of that. We post every time we spray near residents or in medians. We'll post on the CAC. We also have the MSDS sheets available on the website. We check with the state, and Vargas checks with the state to make sure if anybody's registered through the state website that they do not want, for health reasons, any kind of chemical treatment. We're aware of those folks, and right now there's not anybody on the state registry. So that's, it changes. Some years we don't have to deal with it, and some years we do, and this is a year with the high moisture we're dealing with a lot of weeds.
What happens if you get someone to register on that?
We won't spray around. We'll do special notification, and then we just avoid spraying in that general area.
Like, is there a certain distance you have to?
Yeah, there is. It's and I don't know it off the top of my head. I can get it, but all of our guys. Tommy's a certified spray technician. Those guys have to go to several classes. Vargas has a dedicated spray technician. They have to give us 24 hours notice. We're having a hard time this year because it's been wet, so we try to spray when it's going to be dry so it's effective. So the caveat I always throw out to everybody is if you see us posting on the CAC over and over again, a lot of times that's because it's a weather cancellation or we sprayed and it rained and we need to go out and spray again. But yeah, it's the notification seems to be working, and I think for the most part we keep it looking pretty good. But we're definitely having some weeds this year. We spray the trees. We treat for emerald ash borer. We work with Swingle to spray for real common kind of tree diseases. So our guys are on it. We have a pretty comprehensive plan.
I actually have a pond question.
Mm-hmm.
That what they did to the pond north of Coyote Ridge last fall and this summer, where they kind of just like wiped out all the reeds and everything. What was that for?
So those ponds are under urban drainages jurisdictions. So a lot of the waterways within town actually are either co-managed or managed by urban drainage. And when you get a certain amount of growth and they worry about flow, they can come in with their contractor and just scrape all that out. So that's what that is, and it was scheduled to do the pond on the other side, on the west side of the road there, but we have not heard if that's going to happen or not. At least I have not. Public Works has taken over the lion's share of the maintaining the waterways.
Okay. All right. Corey, your question?
All right.
I was just, just a quick hit of what you sent out.
Yep. Give me one quick second. I can pull it back up here.
You can read it word for word to us. I'm hoping for that overview.
The Cliff Notes version?
Big picture. Ton going on. Eldo, or the school parcel park, as you can imagine, we're just facing weather days. they're still doing a pretty good job. We're not too far off schedule. You know, we had the changes from the board, so that's been incorporated into the plans, but we're all hoping for some warmer days. We're not quite to the point where we need to look at doing weekend work, but if it gets too much farther behind, we'll probably start authorizing those guys to work a little bit longer and on the weekends just to make up time when it's dry, because it's
Their aim is still to finish by?
end of September. Yeah, so we're kind of getting that 2-3 days worth of work followed by 4 days of not being able to work. So, but it's so we've got that. We received bids to do the design and construction management of what was 7 trails. As I mentioned in my email to you guys, there were some big safety concerns about one of the trails. So for this process, we'd like to go forward with the 6 trails and then do a little bit more full analysis on that trail on High Plains Drive, which it's great. We're happy that the consultants brought that, or that the design engineers brought that to our attention.
So what is that cost so far?
The contract that we're going to bring forward is $78,000 for the design and what will eventually be construction management of the trails.
And does that tie into the the trail at Colton at Calmonte? Is that the right
No.
one?
No,
No? It stops before there, right?
correct.
So they'll do their own, so that's not part of that. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And that trail through Calmonte is on the developer to build.
Right.
So we'll take it down to that point, and then they're responsible for taking it down McCaslin and connecting it under Colton. So we're excited to get that underway. We're working with our on-call engineer, JVA, on the Purple Park Pavilion, which is good. We've got a price from them to start the civil engineering and the, kind of the groundwork and the topography work. So once we get back some of the, just a little more data on what the ground looks like, I think this group, we can start looking at actual pavilion color, size, styles. So those are kind of the big picture items that we have going on. Swimming pools are opening. So we just brought on 40 new staff. That's always a time consumer.
Who was the contractor that came in at 78,000?
Loris and Associates, and then RG was somewhere right in that ballpark in there. And then we had a really, really low bid on the trails that raised some flags for us. We did have some questions. We wanted to make sure that everybody actually came out and looked at the trails. And there were a couple of prices in there that made us wonder a little bit if they were fully understanding the trails. So,
Okay.
but yeah, programs, soccer camps starting up. So
Morgul this weekend.
Morgul this weekend. Yeah, Morgul's this weekend.
Does it still go around the townhomes?
Nope. They've taken, so Friday night will be time trial, which leaves from, kind of the marketplace down Marshall to Cherryvale to South Boulder, big U shape, and ends at South Boulder Road in McCaslin in Louisville. And then they do what they're calling a circuit race now, which is McCaslin, all on 128, McCaslin to 93 and back on Saturday, and then the traditional Morgul Bismarck on Sunday. So really, most of the impact will be Sunday in town. So.
And there's a fun ride or something too from Purple
Yeah,
Park.
yeah, we've done for the last couple of years. The mayor's going to lead kind of a fun ride, and we've tried to time it to where you can see the pros go through that very first time, and have everybody down there with the cowbells. We still have quite a few cowbells. So yeah, and then we're encouraging people on Facebook or Instagram to show us how they actively ride their bikes in town. We know that it's not necessarily the best spectator sport, but we also wanted to try to encourage people to get out and ride around town and let us know about it. So.
Okay. And then one item that wasn't on the updates was the Rocky Mountain Greenway Trail. So, just if everyone's not aware, so OSAC and PROSTAC both recommended for the board not to fund that. That's what the Superior's board recommended not to fund it, but City of Boulder did. Chris, do you know how that turned out with the other municipalities that have voted on it since?
Broomfield, I think Broomfield approved it, yes, conditionally, like Boulder did. And I'm pretty sure the Boulder County Commissioners did, or they're going to. No, they did, 2-1. Sandy Domenico voted against it. The other two did.
Uh-huh.
So I would imagine that Arvada will, Westminster perhaps.
Okay.
Louisville's not in it.
Yeah. So it seems to be leaning towards favorable for that. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Meeting adjourned.
Oh, and the owls are, the big owls are on the, single tree trail, are out and about. I got a picture of the dad and the baby, one of the babies out of the nest on the tree.
Oh, you know what? Is it on which site? Huge side, with like basketball.
They were supposed to be taking that out.
Then the one that became taken out, I think, was somewhere else.
Yeah, oh,
I can't remember where that was. That's awesome. I think so, yeah, I think it was like up around Eldorado.
Didn't go to work.
Well, you guys, I don't have anybody currently running. I was chatting with Martin a little bit, you guys wanted, just what you want to stay on. I think we just notified. Right now, I'm excited for meeting I don't know what that looks like, I asked Martin your question about, does it mean you're locked in for another term, or does it mean that you're locked in until somebody else shows interest and wants to join?
Right.
But, his thought is, it's been.
The town did that with the fly
If
fishing
you said, hey,
class.
I'm all in, I wanna go for another 3 years, or work, you consider that.
They stocked it.
Or if you're like, look, I wanna stay there. And still have that.
One of my friends is over.
So when it gets filled, then I'm off, that's happened on OSAC there. Where OSAC members have said, well,
but I thought, no, that's a big.
I'd like to stay there, if somebody else wants to join in.
That's scary to know it's living there.
So.
But
I think
you want to
this
see
group
the owl?
together, I'd like to see this group together.
That was the owl flying away.
Open to it.
One of your chickens?
Yeah.
We don't have anybody actively interested.
There's a papa and a baby that kind of that. And that's like great, I mean, I'm on the trail.
Bribery I need to do to keep you around.
Patrick, we're going to reach out to the.
What was your photo, Chris?
Yeah.
What was your photo? Oh.
Martin did.
Remember,
fly fishing classes?
Yeah, that's, well, that's the.
Well, Ronnie, she was the gal that
I was
came.
thinking about that, too. I don't want to eat those fish with some
And she was not interested. She was interested, but she.
Yeah,
has
wonder if they actually get it, or.
That's nasty. Obligations on Wednesday nights or something.
Yeah. Did he take, what do you do with it?
I don't know.
It looks like it's not a catch and release situation.
Yeah, I'm sure he did, he probably could nominate it, but that's a.
Yeah, it's.
I want to eat something.
OSAC,
I'm not sure I would eat something.
That's a monster freaking nugget, too.
I would definitely let it go. That'd be fun.
Bye, you guys.
Should have. That's the right way to do it, but that's just my thoughts.
Not all, well, because so far, the town hasn't put it out there that there's a birthday.
Right.
So there will be two.
Aaron and Daryl.
Their term, the question is whether the board will consider. I think here next year.
I think the rule is, well, you know the rule, it's, if nobody else applies, there's open seats, they're, they can be eligible.
Yeah. So it'd be Aaron and Daryl. Yeah, man.
Off the record.
Perfect. Well, hold on. Let's get it off.
No, this is about.
Let's get it off. Yeah, go ahead. We had a bunch of kids.
Oh, Madison, what comment that there's only like 2 kids from last year on the front desk come back?
We hired 14 new, and we lost a bunch to just kind of make that transition out of college. We're young.
No, just keep an eye on it. Yeah, there's a reason.
See you guys.
I'm not, Courtney.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, at this point in time,
I don't know if you heard that. She doesn't really know. Look, she's not complaining. She just.
Well, that's what, it's funny because Brian and I, we expected that guard. We weren't quite expecting to hire someone as period
like this part has nothing.
Yeah.
But it's a question of.
I guess all I want to do is I don't want to tell her, I just want to read that.
Yeah. You know, so, I mean, that's, you know, there's so much concentration here, by so many different things. Here, you know, right here, food machine here is basketball hoops, so you have one here, you have one here. You know, so I'm like, yeah, you could keep. Well, that's, you know, just my biggest thing, I was like, I was trying to look at just order options, like, yeah, you know, that's so, like, pretty young. Well, I mean, if I right in there, you know, Castle Park, we can use for there every day, keep it around. It's a fence, you know, like, there's nothing to play with there. Yeah, and I'm like, they're only 8. You know, 6 and 8, I'm like, okay, then go over there, you know, and it's like, go to the sled, and over here. Right. That's good to know. I know, well, exactly. This, unless you, this is a location, that's why I was just kind of curious, you know, how this all shakes out. Let's spend some money over there, and then he's, okay. He keeps me all informed on this stuff all the time, and I was always traveling, so. But, you know, there's so much added in here. I don't know. So it's like, see his wife and his like, see her hanging out with the kids, you know, like, but you know, I mean, there's a lot of shit out here, but she makes some shit that needs to be great. Like, not this fall. There could be. Where's this? That's what everything's going around. I was on that day.
stated